Look, like one of my longest clients that I've represented are the Duplass brothers productions and their production company, and they made a lot of waves about a year ago with Penelope. And
They say the cavalry is not coming. The cavalry is not coming. I did
but
five
I
movies.
love
Hey, Jackie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. I know you're an attorney, entertainment attorney with Ramo Law.
Yeah,
Uh, we got so many questions for you. You have no idea.
I can't wait.
So why don't you jump in and tell us about your background? Where'd you grow up? How did you get into law? How did you get into entertainment? And then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I grew up in Chicago, two parents who are white collar criminal litigators in Chicago. And so, as anyone who has parents who are attorneys will tell you, they said never, ever, ever do it. And then went to undergrad at University of Illinois in Champaign. Studied business there because who knows what business is when you're 18, but it sounds cool. Graham was graduating and kind of called mom and dad and said, I really think I should go to law school. And they kind of said, we really think you should too, but figure out a fun way to do it.
Mm.
So I was looking into all the different nuances of what I could do in law and saw music law, which I thought was very interesting. And my sister was in Nashville at the time, which is obviously a big music business hub. So I went down to Belmont University in Nashville for law school and spent 3 years focusing on music law and interned up and down Music Row. And after 3 years, decided to make the move to LA and was networking, looking for jobs, and kind of landed in more of a film TV job than a music job as my first one. And thank God for it. I do all the music law I ever wanted to do as it relates to television and films. So, spent about 4 years at a smaller boutique firm. Um, which was great because I just got to do kind of everything and then was ready for a little bit bigger and moved over to Ramo. And I've been here almost exactly 3 years to the day now. And just have sort of expanded what we do is we do a lot larger transactions and in more areas of entertainment and just figuring out the Wild West of what content's becoming in the new age.
Wow, and that is exactly why I'd love to talk to you. First of all, let me get something right. I call it Ramo law. You said Ramo law?
I don't know what I said because even Elsa Ramo herself says it differently every other
Ramo.
month. So her parents actually say it differently. So
How,
sometimes
how, how did
it's
they say? How did they say it?
one says Ramo, one says Ramo, I think. But most
Okay.
people say Ramo, so we don't even know any day of the week and we just
I,
respond to all.
all right, I just want to get my facts straight
There
before we
is no
get.
right and wrong.
Okay, so you're at Ramo Law now, and it's a funny story because I was watching the David Geffen documentary on I think it's on HBO, and
Mhm.
he got into music at William Morris in New York,
Mhm.
and then he wanted to do film, and it took him like I don't know how many years, 10 plus years to get into film after
Mhm.
he was successful in music. So your story kind of reminds me a little bit of a David
Yeah.
Geffen story.
Well, the interesting thing about it is that like the foundation of what we do is all copyright related, right? And anybody that knows the specifics of it will tell you that music copyright is the most complicated, wacky, wonky thing ever. So, in a weird way, studying that as my educational background in law, it's like everything after you understand music copyright that is copyright related is easy after that. So, it was a great crash course in the foundational elements of what we still do every day.
Gotcha. So you got to Ramallah, and they said, okay, because I know you do packaging, right? Or finance, help you with financing, packaging,
Right.
putting projects. So why don't you dive into that a little bit, exactly kind of what you do, so we have a
Yeah.
better, yeah.
Yeah, so I responded to a post that they had for a clearance attorney, actually, because, like I said, at my old firm, I kind of did a lot of different things. And so one of the things was clearance, saw the post. That's how I got my foot in the door. So I still run our entire clearance department doing, fair use mostly for projects or very complex rights, chain of title type of issues. And then probably about like 3, 4 months in here, they were like, "Do you want to do a finance closing on the producer side of things?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'm game." Didn't realize what I was signing up for at the time because those are no joke, but am clearly a masochist and kind of loved it. And so I started doing a lot more of the producer side financing, which tends to be very solution oriented. There's, a new whack-a-mole every day. It's always a crisis,
Yeah.
always a new problem. Um, and have just taken a liking to that. And then, similarly, we have a packaging and sales department here, which traditionally, I think it's been around for like 15 years, but it's a team of non-attorneys that sort of advise clients, help them get to the point of needing a deal, help them with sales strategy. The president of that department, Tiffany Boyle and Elsa Ramo, have a production company themselves. They're also producing and executive producing projects on the side. And I just took a liking to that side of the business as well. So I just recently became the only attorney that's on their team. So as things sort of get either structured on the financing side, it's a lot of deal making on that side of things, or as things go from packaging and sales creative into legal or vice versa. I'm sort of the one architecting those. And then again, in the sales process, the distribution deals, things like that, I sort of come in to advise at a high level and structure.
I got it. This is interesting because the business has changed so much in the last 2 years,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I've talked to directors, producers, actors on this show, and everybody's got their own perspectives and everybody's treading quite carefully. So, before I have a lot of questions that people have asked me to ask on this and in the time that we have together, but what is it from your perspective? What has changed from where you sit?
All of it, and it continues to change. So I think, the biggest thing as an ecosystem is that the money is becoming decentralized, right? So everybody feels like independent film and television is dying, and to a degree it absolutely has contracted and there's less money in it, but it's not that there's less money in content. It's that there's less money in traditional independent film and TV. So we are seeing a lot more short form new media exploitations, which has its own complications and hurdles, with respect to financing and rights structuring. So, if you're talking about a YouTube series that, there maybe is some exploitation already, or there might be ancillaries or derivatives and all these other rights that you need to consider. There's short form rights, there's long form rights, there's different languages. Not that those things didn't exist, but the barrier to entry for all of the different forms of exploitation is becoming so much lower that it's much easier. So it's really thinking about the whole world of the IP from the start and making sure that you're either getting the maximum amount of rights or ring fencing the rights that you need to ring fence, or if your client is investing in those rights, what are they investing in and what are they sharing in? Is it only the short form content? Is it the ancillary rights, the merchandising, the music, all of those other things that really come into play? And I think today more than ever can really spin out. And so there's
Mm.
just a lot more variables right now that we're seeing in different ways to participate in revenue and making sure that clients are, either sharing in it or protecting that they keep more of it. It just depends what side you're on.
So originally, like the entertainment business, it was about pre-sales for a long time,
Yeah.
and sales companies and selling and getting taxed on whatever they sell. How is it
That
now?
still exists. That still definitely exists. I think that the pre-sale game is fewer and far between than it once was. I mean, even still with a lot of independent film, like you're not seeing their finance structure rely on the pre-sales as much
Mm,
unless they're at a certain level. And there's just only so many at that certain budget level that are being made right now. So,
mm,
you really need the name talent to be attached to get the pre-sales, but how do you get any financing in place without the talent? And that's the kind of the classic chicken or the egg. And we're
mm,
seeing at that like sub 10 million level, I'm just talking about feature films now, but we're really seeing, whereas that maybe used to be pieced together by some pre-sales and one or two equity players, maybe it's some pre-sales, maybe it's some brand financing lately, maybe it's 8 or 9 equity investors that are putting in smaller amounts. So, which look, it might be a good thing for the industry, right? Because yes, the investors are taking less of a gamble on those smaller investments, but the less people lose on those investments, the more likely they are to keep doing it. So they are diversifying to protect themselves as well. But it's changing how the package gets put together. It's more complicated at every budget level, and there's just more people involved negotiating those deals.
now compared to before, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a filmmaker today says, okay, I want to put this package together. Well, let's talk about what Ramo does, right? And
Hmm.
somebody like yourself. So they come to you and they go, okay, you know what? I wrote this amazing script and all these actors, friends of mine, they like it. How do I move forward in this new market era?
Hmm. Well, first question is who are the actors, right? And are they actually something that a sales agent would see value in? If so, yeah, let's talk to the sales agent. Let's get pre-sales to be a component of your financing structure. Let's find somebody who will lend against those pre-sales and piece
Mm,
together some equity components, and then you're off to the races, right? If they're, if it's a package of people that don't necessarily command that, then it becomes a little bit harder because you've lost one of the tools in your toolkit. Not to say
mm,
that you can't do it. And so, there's always going to be that equity component, and that's a huge part of what the packaging and sales team does is, they review the materials. If they think that they know somebody either through our network of clients or just through their network externally that will identify with the project or is looking for that type of genre project or that level of investment, whatever it may be, right? There's a lot of different markers on what we kind of know people are looking for and when. Maybe we'll reach out to them. Maybe we can attach a few elements to the project and see how we can get involved. And I think that, the more people you get attached to it, it picks up steam and it goes further and further. So it's just a question of helping them strategize, what are your different elements of your structured finance plan,
mm.
realistically speaking? And, if you can get a pre-sale or a distribution agreement or a tax credit that you can have somebody lend against, that money is usually easier to find because it's secured and it's more of a sure thing. Equity
Mm.
can be a little bit tougher, but it's helping them structure those such that they all make sense, they all work together, everybody's happy, and at the end of the day, it gets you the budget that you need to make the movie.
What is the general budget of I remember back, I don't know, 2 years ago, this is the budget. 5 million, $5 million movies is what we make. What is it
Mhm.
now? What's the number now that people are comfortable?
I mean, today I've sent emails on $100,000 project and a $50 million project. So that's a little hard to answer. But I think that people right now, the sweet spot is 5 to 7 for
Okay.
your average independent. I think the like 7 to 15, 7 to 20 game is pretty hard, right? Like that's that number where it's just enough that people are taking a big leap, but it's also just enough that it's a big risk unless you win big on the back end. And then once you get bigger than that, you are dealing with things like name talent or pre-sales and a lot of debt components where it's a little bit more of a sure thing for the financing. But
Uh,
there's that middle ground where like you are really taking a big swing in terms of is anybody going to make money off of this?
Right. And this is interesting because I mean you got to have passion to make movies. I mean,
Oh
you got to
yeah.
be either that or
It's
you're
not for the
crazy.
faint of heart.
Yeah, you're crazy. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Why would you make a movie? I don't know.
I have
But
just about every single client I ever talk to at one point in production will say, if I ever tell you I'm doing this again, please tell me not to. And I say, you will
yeah.
always come back to me and say that you're doing it again.
Yeah.
Or they'll say, if you were in my position, what would you do? And I always say, well, I don't think I would ever be in your position because it's crazy, but I can advise you.
Okay, so this is interesting. There's so many components that we could talk about, but from a perspective of where you sit as a legal,
Mhm.
and this is a hypothetical question. This is not, you don't have to be accurate on this.
Yeah.
What is the, I think I know the answer, but what is the profession, whether it's an actor, whether it's a director, producer, whatever, who has it the easiest?
Among those three, I say actor because they're in and out for the most part, right? Or maybe they come back for promotion or something like that. And I'm sure that there's a lot of
Mm,
they're out there, right? They're the visible ones. And I'm sure that that in the world has its own set of challenges. But as far as making the thing, I mean, you for sure your producer is, every waking moment thinking about all the problems that come up and from quite literally the first conversation about the project to the last. And
mm,
more often than not, the director, but not always.
Hmm.
But an actor, it's usually a 6 or even less than that, a 3 to 10 week commitment when all is said and done, right? And for a producer or director, it can be years.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's totally on point. You have different calibers of people that are in the business, right? And I'm sure you've seen a lot of different calibers talk to you. Um, what is the most, you don't have to name names, but what is the most odd situation you've seen? And and I'll ask you the second question after that.
Gosh, odd. Odd how?
Like what are these people thinking? What's going on here? Because there's a lot of that. I mean, there is a lot of, I want XYZ, whatever it is.
I mean, I think generally there is a type of person that, right? And I'm just the lawyer, so it's this is what I want to do. And my response is you cannot do that. It will be a breach of contract or it will be a major union issue. They will never let you work with the unions again, or which is effectively career ending, right? Or, you will be sued. You will have to go into litigation. And the response sometimes, and again, it's because these people are so passionate about it and they work for so long on it and they believe in it. But sometimes the response is, I don't care. I'm gonna do it. If this is the last one, so be it. And that happens more
Wow.
often than you would think.
Wow. Well, and then there's while we're on that subject, then there's the flux of individuals who have joined TikTok. And I've
hmm
seen a lot of that, oh, I'm a writer. You should check out my stuff. Hey, this is the journey of my film. Hey, I'm making my first film. How has that affected you guys on your end? Does the social media, such as TikTok, and obviously a lot of these folks are on these
hmm
platforms because they're not getting the shot that they used to get on
hmm
in real life. I mean, not that that isn't real life. How does that affect you guys?
think that example has really affected us too much. I think that the social media thing in the large scale has been interesting because it does reach more eyeballs, right? So I think that there's an interest widespread across the world of how do things get made. And so there's all these different opportunities of, hey, if we can create content, for example, if we can create content that's behind the scenes showing what a DP does or what a grip does, or all of these different roles that the average movie viewer doesn't even necessarily know exist, right? And people think that's so cool to see the behind the scenes of it, and we can put it up on TikTok, and how does it get made? Like, is that something that's bankable that somebody will actually finance or lend against because it in and
Mm,
of itself is
mm.
a new form of movie marketing, right? And so that's sort of an interesting concept that we're seeing people playing with these days, um, which is really interesting because it's totally separate from the on-camera
Yeah.
talent as well.
Yeah, and from a perspective of those filmmakers, have you seen a reduction in playtime for these people in the industry since the two strikes, since COVID? Has it reduced? Has it shrunk? Or has it just changed?
I think it's just changed. I think that there is unequivocally for sure less independent television. Like that market right now is tough beyond. Um, and independent films similarly. And we're seeing, a contraction of the streamers and a bigger push for theatrical, which has been really interesting lately. Like that's the latest thing. But when all is said and done, it's finding different avenues to get the story out there or do a proof of concept or something like that.
Proof of concept, that's interesting.
hmm
So going to streamers, obviously they've also altered the way they do business.
hmm
How is it different now than it was a couple of years ago?
Well, I think they have a lot less buying power, or so it seems. I'll tell you that. So there was a golden age where, the streamers were coming up and they had all this cash on hand and they wanted content, right? Like they were paying everybody and paying everybody handsomely for it. and that has contracted lately. So
Mm.
it's a lot harder to get that right. Like they've gotten smarter. They're producing in-house. They have their partners that they sort of have precedent with. And so it's a lot harder for, again, like an independent feature producer to say, I'm going to make this great film and know that everyone's just going to get paid out all their net profits and make revenue on the back end. That is not happening as often.
As often. Now, what the situation with, and you don't have to comment on that if you don't want to, but just vaguely, with Netflix, buying Warner Brothers versus Paramount buying Warner Brothers, and I know like people like Christopher Nolan and these folks are worried about theatrical. What's your take on that perspective?
I don't know that it's going to have a big effect, to be honest. I think that people that want to see films in theaters will see films in theaters, and I think that it's just a question of making the right kind of film that people want to go see in theaters,
Mm,
right? And
mm,
so,
mm.
and people that want to sit and stream films are going to want to sit and stream films, and there's certain ones that, you want to do both of. Um, and that's kind of what I have to say about that. It's more about the consumer and less about the supplier on that and what the
So
product is.
yeah, so the consumer is now on their phones. So the
Hmm.
consumer is looking at vertical shorts, 90 seconds. Uh, mm, the quality is not the best, but it's out there. And so there's a lot of, I don't want to say infighting, but almost this opinion of one side extreme and then the other side extreme because um, it just seems to me that the TikTokers and the YouTubers and the content creators have created a path forward because of the lack of being able to be invited to the game by the studios. The studios seem to be like pretty. I'm gonna work with these people. Like they got in, like you said, they
Right.
spend the money, they bought the relationships, and then they close the doors behind them.
Hmm.
And it's interesting to see to how this, like the people like Nolan obviously doesn't have to worry about anything, but in the sense of, but other filmmakers who made a couple of movies, including myself, that they go, okay, what's my next move? How do I move forward? What is the best strategy for the independent film people right now?
The best strategy is to attach some sort of name talent that'll get someone listening, right? Whether that is, and look, a lot of that name talent, and it's a lot of the TikTokers and people that you're talking about right now, especially at that level, that haven't broken into the more traditional model yet because they just have eyeballs on them for whatever they're sort of being watched for on TikTok. But those people also get how to make content, and they oftentimes have aspirations of having some sort of a production company or something that looks like that, right? And so if
Interesting.
that talent wants to have a producer credit on your project and be a collaborator with you as opposed to just the traditional, oh hey, come on as a lead actor model, like that is something that we're seeing enticing a lot of up and coming young talent because similarly where they didn't know that before or realize that before, I think there's just so much access to all of that these days. And so sometimes offering a producer credit and a meaningful collaboration in exchange for that producer credit, not just being a vanity credit, can be very helpful. But you got to get someone that wants to do it.
Well, that's the next question because the values of some of these actors on pretty much every actor has dropped since the two strikes.
Hmm.
How that we know, I know the impact of it, so I'm not going to get into that. How are actors, from what you see, handling this? Because you know, actor so and so, used to bring 2 million in pre-sales brings 500,000 now if you're lucky. So what do they do now and how do you see actors like moving forward and navigating all this?
It's not that it's necessarily new, but a lot of them are, talent actor owned production companies, right? And then they themselves or they have an excellent team that will help put together the package that they need to put together. And they're not just being hired as a work for hire acting employee, like they are
Mm.
involved more meaningfully in that project. I mean that's the biggest one. And I think other than that, it is getting smart about what their deals look like. Like they know what a fixed fee is going to look like. So there's all sorts of different sweeteners and attachments and way that they can help that.
What excites you about the film industry? What is it that makes you go, "Oh yeah, I can't wait"?
I'm excited about how much it's changing right now. Yes, it
Oh
has
wow.
been depressed, right? But I think with that is a lot of opportunity. And I think that we're seeing, AI, I know that's going to like open a can of
Mm.
worms, but there's a lot of cool ways to use it that aren't threatening to people's jobs. And, the brand component of everything right now is so huge. And just being in those deals and architecting those deals as the structures of them are completely getting flipped on their heads. It's like, I've worked long enough, but not long enough that I know the rules, and so it's kind of fun to break them now, right? And make it make sense and piece the puzzle together in a way that's never been done before.
Well, you said fundamentally changed and the breaking the rules. What has
Mhm.
fundamentally changed? And what are the rules that we're breaking?
I mean, all of it, right? Like I'll do a deal with somebody who's been around a little bit longer than me, and they'll say, well, customarily, these are the rights that's granted in this type of deal, or customarily, we wouldn't reserve that, or customarily, it should be 30%, the finance plan should be 30% this and 60% this and 10% this. And it's like, okay, but nothing's really customary anymore. And so let's talk about
Mm.
what this is and what the true value is and what the true return's going to be. Or, yeah, sure, customarily your finance plan looks like it should be, a pie chart that's broken down in a specific percentage. But if what I'm saying works and we've got the pieces together, like let's give it a try, right? So
So
that has been the fun thing lately is that we as a firm, like we understand content and we understand the foundation of it, but thinking of new creative ways to lawyer within those confines has been something that we've been having a lot of fun with lately.
what type of genres are picking up right now?
I mean, I think drama's tough right now. Horror will always be horror. I think thriller will always be thriller. But I think picking up, I don't know that anything is picking up in terms of genre. But drama is tough right now. And TV, good luck.
Vertical is picking up.
Vertical is, yes, that is picking up for sure.
So a lot of people have like editors, wardrobe. They've struggled to stay in the business. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just not enough work, right? How much work do you guys do with overseas in Europe, England? Do you do any co-productions?
All the time. There is a lot of that, and I think that it's because of the tax credits that they're offering, right? It's so much cheaper to make a movie or television series overseas and do the co-production structure, which can be the most confusing thing in the world sometimes, but we managed to get it done. I I will say that I think that that was a big topic of conversation 9 months ago, a year ago, and it's definitely still happening. But I have seen in the last 4 months more US productions than I would have previously. But those are all sub 7 million, right? Like if you're talking about a 15 plus, like you're almost certainly talking about overseas or Canada.
Got it.
Mhm.
I have some questions I want to ask you. Okay, so let's talk about minimum guarantees for indie films. How are they looking these days?
There's not a lot of them. They do exist. They do exist, but they are few and far between.
Do you see um, sales companies shrinking down and sometimes going out of business in this new world?
Definitely, but I feel like that was always the pattern, right? Like there's always that look, there's a handful that are, absolute tenants in the industry and they're gonna be around, but there's that indie level sales agency that is uh oftentimes kind of a victim of turnover. And so we see those deals and have to deal with those when they go into bankruptcy and what are our termination rights and our sales agency agreement. Like those are kind of regular. I wouldn't say it's picked up. I wouldn't say it's slowed down, but that's always going to be something that crosses our desk every now and again.
So, if a filmmaker wants to make a movie, and obviously now you're looking at, you don't have the same platform with actors, unless you
Mhm.
know certain actors through
Right.
friends, and agents are all about the money. I think going through agents is the most challenging because they're not even
Depends which one it is, but yes.
okay. Let's talk about that. Everybody wants to know this. So you don't have to name names, but I welcome them if you do.
Yeah.
If a filmmaker wants to get something off the ground, because it becomes a dog eat dog kind of world. I mean, no one really gives a shit until suddenly somehow some actor is attached.
Mhm.
However, you manage to do that, and then all of a sudden, the poor little filmmaker is taking the seat way in the back of the bus, and everybody else in the front taking credit for it. So, what agency do you think? And lay it down, lady, lay it down. What agency do you think is artist friendly for filmmakers right now in the market?
I'm not going to give you a name, but there is a reason for that besides being political. I think it is very dependent on who you're talking to, right? I think it is the agent, not the agency. And my approach, it's the same thing for attorneys, by the way. And I think there are people that approach it as this is what I want. I want the world. It's unreasonable. Take it or leave it. And I think that because of the few resources that are sort of in the market right now, a lot of times you have to leave it. And so they can over negotiate. And if that happens, and if they are asking for more than what the value is, like that, the market has spoken, right? And I think that there are other people that work in the interest of content getting made and are collaborative and are solution oriented. And those are the people that at the end of the day are getting things made. So there is a payoff to having that approach to it, right? And I think that that old school kind of like, here's what I want, and I'm not willing to talk to you about it or be reasonable. I think that there's actually a lot less of that.
Okay, so do you see consensus in the business overall that people are coming to the table because of what's happened, or you don't see the consensus?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that there are a lot more collegial conversations about the people that are in the middle of those, with the people that are in the middle of those deals where, hey, this is what we need. This is what you need. What makes sense here? Okay, you know what? That is fair. I'm willing to listen. Those conversations seem to be happening more often than they used to.
What about television? We haven't talked about television. Do you dabble in that?
A little bit. There's not a whole lot of independent TV these days, but look, like one of my longest clients that I've represented are the Duplass brothers productions and their production company, and they made a lot of waves about a year ago with Penelope and how they handled that approach. And I think a lot of people have been very inspired by that model. And we've had people call the office and reference that, which gets put across my desk because I was helping with those. So I think that there's a lot of excitement about it, but we haven't seen that strategy or application pick up widespread quite yet.
They say the cavalry is not coming. The cavalry is not coming.
But
I did
I love
five
it. I
movies.
love great television. So I can't figure it out. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
I love a great limited series or something like that. And I think a lot of people do. So that is the one thing that makes me think like the pendulum always swings and it's gotta swing back because I think people like it.
Yeah, I think television. So initially, when some of these streamers started the business, getting into, and I met some people that were straight out of college, and honestly, the Starbucks barista knew more about filmmaking than this quote unquote producer that this streamer had hired to run something in some country. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, how are you fucking kidding me? I didn't tell him that. But yeah, who knows? But they just wanted people to basically tell them what to do, push the buttons and get it done. And the quality showed. Now, I'm going to ask you the million-dollar question. Sometimes when you go on some of these platforms, some movie that does not deserve to be number one is number one. Do you know the secret behind that?
I don't. What is it?
Well, well, I've heard they get it into their contract. No matter how it's turned out, it's they have to put it as number one. I don't know if that's 100% true or not, but I've been told that when you cut the deal with the streamer, you say, "Hey, I want this to be number one for 10 days."
I don't know anything about that.
The one question that somebody's asked is, what is more viable right now, a one-off film or a slate of films for financing?
Oh, to finance it like a slate?
Yeah,
I mean, I,
slate.
a one-off is easier if you're truly starting out with no track record. To get it financed, a one-off for sure.
What is the film project you're most proud of that you've helped shepherd along?
Gosh, a great
Questions.
question. That's a good question. I mean, they're all like a different kid, you know what I mean? Like you pour your heart in, like especially when you're doing the financing closings, like they completely take over your life. They take over your weekends. They are oftentimes overseas. So you're on crazy hours. And I think those are fun transactions to close because you get the big exciting email at the end of the day that you close them. But for me, it's not the project. I love working with my clients, right? And they're the ones that keep coming back and that we get to collaborate on things with and strategize, before the project is even made.
Got it. So if someone has a question for you,
Mhm.
um, do you have some social media that you're on, or besides obviously direct email, but
Obviously, direct email.
obvious
LinkedIn, honestly, I know it's lame, but LinkedIn.
folks can just ask you, and you're
Yeah,
active on LinkedIn.
yeah, yeah.
AI likeness for performances. Do you see it shifting a hell of a lot more, or do you see it as
I think right now it's going to stay the same until there's some new technology that we have to think about how to contract for. But SAG's got it pretty under control, and I think that reps are getting smart about it. And I don't think that producers are really pushing back on it. I think that they get it. So the
okay?
likenesses, I think it's as it's going to be for a while.
What do you want to see happen within the next 5 years in the business?
I would love for people to start investing like crazy again. I would love for those big fat streamer deals to come back, big fat MGs to come back. I just want everyone to be happy again?
Jackie, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much.